Hey guys, and welcome back to the Gulf Coast Growth Show. I'm your host, Jason Lee, here with my co-host, Clint Aiken.
Yay!
And we are joined today by Chris Talley, the president of Blast Builders. Excited to have you on the show today, Chris.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
And today we're going to talk about blast-proof buildings. And we were actually just talking before the show, really cool concept ideas. And again, kind of the trademark around this region, a lot of people don't know, is safety. And safety is always one of the things that we take a lot of pride in, especially across the petrochemical refinery area. And sometimes it gets a black eye, but they don't realize just how much work goes into it. And so we're going to share a little bit about your story, your great company that you just started, and a little bit about your background. So you guys, we'll just kind of dive in. So Chris, you guys just kicked off. Tell us a little about you, who you are, and then give us a little bit about your background.
Okay, so Chris Talley, president of Blast Builders. Graduated college, and I'll take you way back. In 1987, really got involved in thinking about buildings as it relates to blast, doing federal construction after the Oklahoma City bombing, if y'all remember that. And back then it's a lot different. We're protecting against progressive collapse in buildings. What we do in the petrochemical industry is a lot different, but working with some of the same professionals then. That's kind of how we got into the industry. We'll save some of the rest of it for when we go forward.
Cool.
Then I managed federal construction projects for Jacobs Engineering for almost 20 years, and then I spent almost 10 years with a general contractor in town managing these kinds of projects.
Fantastic. So talk to us about what a blast, for those that, there's like, you were just informing me, what is a blast resistant building?
Okay, yeah, so that's a great thing. One of the first things you said was a blast-proof building. I'll tell you, there is no thing, is no such thing as a blast-proof building.
Right.
So a blast-resistant building is a building that's designed to protect the occupants inside during a blast event at a petrochemical facility, right? So you can imagine a building that is built normally to be very stiff to resist wind loads and the things we do commercial buildings for. These buildings are dynamic. Imagine a building that sways in a blast event. So everything in that building, the structure and all the MEP systems, everything has to be built to stay in place in that event.
Wow.
Right? So that's the difference.
Okay, and so, and I know there's some history to where this all kind of began. Can you walk us a little bit through the history of, when these things came? Is it a new industry? Is it something that's been going on for a while?
Sure. I can tell you, as a professional, my first memory of a blast at a petrochemical facility in this area. I'm from Pasadena. I grew up here. Graduated college in '87. One of my first construction projects, I was working on a project over by Sims Bio, and that's when Phillips exploded in 1989. An explosion there, and then that's when I really first realized I had friends and family working in all the plants, and I really realized then what a danger these people are in every day they walk through that gate. Move forward to 1990. That's when Arco at Channelview had an accident. Lost a dear friend and college roommate in that one. Then that one really moved it home. Then move forward again. I'm working for Jacobs in 2005 when BP down in Texas City had an accident. Jacobs lost 11 people that day. And I was fortunate to be on the team to help figure out how to move non-essential people out of the plant and all of that. And that's really when the industry changed. That's when the American Petroleum Institute came out with their recommended guidelines to comply with the OSHA requirements around the plants and the safety of the people. That's when people really started thinking about blast-resistant buildings. How do we protect the people? So that's really what it took. It took all those accidents leading up to this, and there was many more around the country. Those are just the three in this area that we remember.
So do you think that was led by API and OSHA, or do you think that was more of just the plants saying, "Hey, we got to do a better job"?
I think all the above. Okay. I think the plants were reaching out to API as well. I think OSHA was requiring it. After all that, that's when the whole industry took it more serious.
Gotcha.
And not that they didn't take it serious before, they just didn't have the tools to really do it, right?
Right.
And that's when the API guidelines came out and really talked about what is a siting plan, what is a hazard analysis. How do you determine, did the studies to determine the blast zones that you would put a building in, if that makes sense, right?
Right.
So I'm curious, in today's environment, I know there's, and it's kind of not on the agenda, but I want to talk about it because the refinery business, right? So we're in the business, you're obviously putting them out here in these new establishments. How much work, how much work is there for a guy like you? Tell me where that comes from.
Yeah, so there's a lot of plants along the Gulf Coast, right?
Yeah, right.
It's certainly a niche business, but that's why, that's kind of why we're in it, right? It's one of the problems you'll see Henry talking about is the commercial contractors can do this. The issue is it's so specific on what we do, the connections, the structural, how to work behind the fence. It's so different than a commercial construction project that there's a great deal of business up and down the Gulf Coast. Our problem is a lot of our clients are trying to pull us outside of the Gulf Coast, and we don't necessarily want to go. We like our business right here, but you have to service your clients, right?
Right, sure.
So there's a great deal of business. The OSHA actually changes. They require the plants to reevaluate and do another siting plan every 5 years,
right?
Because the units change. One building may be in a 1 psi blast zone, 5 years ago, and now the unit's changed, and now it's in a 3 psi.
Okay.
So they would have to come and evaluate it. Can we harden the building? Do we need to replace it? What needs to happen? So it's kind of a continuous business. Actually.
Gotcha. Okay, right. So it's that helped answer the question. So there's a constant evolution inside these plants as far as safety and the work that's being done. So it's not build it, leave it, and then we're done.
That's right.
But maybe every 5 years or so, you're coming in and reevaluating. Do we need a new building, or are we getting paid to restructure the new one and set it up to new standards?
That's exactly right.
Great, fantastic. So lots of jobs, lots of opportunity.
And I know you don't necessarily want to go out of the area, but it is middle of summer in Houston, it's 100 degrees plus. If someone calls you from Alaska, you might consider it.
Yeah, well, it's funny. We're looking at an opportunity up in the Northwest right now. And that obviously, I don't want to be a general contractor in the Northwest, so that would be much more consulting and construction management.
Right. Yeah, good point. So, talk to us about the process by which these buildings, kind of get designed, where they come from, and then, how do you get them into the plants? I'm sure our audience would love to hear.
Sure.
Not, technical, but more of just an overall overview of how that works.
Yeah, as an overall kind of perspective, the first thing that's going to happen is a plant. One of the petrochemical companies is going to hire one of the big engineering companies, and there's more, but there's really 3 of them in the whole country that really do this. They're in I don't need to name them by name. Right. You guys can kind of figure them out. You would hire one of those kind of 3 or 4 companies, and they do what's called a siting study. Think of it like a contour map of the plant. They have special software that does a blast analysis, and it's going to show the contours of the blast zones throughout that plant.
Wow.
And then we would site the buildings, right? That's why it's called a siting plan. We'd help site the buildings where they need to be in the plant in relation into that blast zone so we can protect the people.
It's amazing.
And I can tell you that at points when we make decisions, a pre-engineered metal building like this is really the way to go. Unless there's other reasons like speed or something.
Right.
If it's a overpressure of 1 to 5 psi, we can solve it typically with a pre-engineered metal building. So at that point, and then when they do that, if they have existing buildings in the plant, we have to make the decisions to replace them, or is it possible to harden them? So we'll do a cost analysis. Does it make sense to add steel, blast walls, envelope, whatever it would take, or just replace it? Right?
Oh, wow.
So that's kind of the next thing that happens if you're that owner. And then, there's a whole process of damage levels you're willing to accept. Like I said, they're not blast proof, right?
Right.
So the engineers, these design engineers for the blast buildings, will work with the owners, and they'll decide, do you want low, medium, or high damage? No one ever picks high, by the way. So low or medium to protect the occupants, and then we go forward with design from there.
What would you say is the average age of the buildings? And most of the chemical plants refineries here, they're 40, 50 years old plus, right?
They would, I tell you, but since '05, the plants have done a really good job of moving non-essential people out. Right, everybody learned the lesson. So there's not near as many people working in the plant as there was, back then. So a lot of that stuff you've seen them move completely outside the fence.
Right.
So I would say, that's a really great question. I'm not sure I could answer it, with any sense of accuracy. But I'd say 10 or 15.
I'm just curious.
I'd say 10 or 15 years.
Pop quiz, you failed.
Yeah. Right.
So when you guys design these buildings, are they designed specific to the site, like what you just described? We come in and we do this thing, and then we've got to go to the shop and then build a building, and then get it delivered or get it put on site? Or do you have, I hate to say it like this, are there buildings sitting out there ready to go, or are they really custom for every?
They are not. They're custom for every job.
Wow.
You can imagine a plant. So it could be an admin building or a lab or a control room, a change house. Site, every blast profile is different. One wall maybe need to be designed stronger than the other that's facing the blast zone, right? So they're all custom, and of course, people's interiors and the footprint of the building is all different. So.
Fantastic. Well, Chris, we're going to talk a little bit about some of the things that are taking place in your organization now, and maybe some big news, and you can share some of those things. And then before we get off today, maybe you can give us a real quick synopsis of, you've given us some background, you give us some history. I'd love you to highlight just a couple of talking points on exactly what you guys do and the services that you provide in and out, so that our audience can hear that. We want to give you some free advertising.
Great.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. So that being said, talk to us about any of the big news or things that you have going on, because you guys are relatively new. I mean, you guys just kicking it off. So talk to us first of all about that.
Okay. Yeah. Well, so like I said, we think it's a really unique business, and there's such a small group of professionals in it, and experience is expensive, right? So we really think that having the relationships with the guys that have built these can really provide value to the owner. That's why we did it. So we kicked off a month ago. So we are a startup. We've got a few jobs we're already engaged in, so we're very happy about that to have some stuff right away. So that's a month into the business, and we really think that education is the key in this. So one of the things we're going to do is hopefully our own little podcast, and if not
okay, fine, we'll come on yours.
Yes, please do, and a blog, and sometimes just a blog, because I want other people in the industry to participate, and I think education is really the key.
Yeah.
I want to get out there, in our blog, it's going to be called Blast Briefs.
Okay.
And so at least maybe once a month, something about blast buildings to help educate our clients and the people that occupy these buildings, so they ask the right questions.
Cool. Awesome. And how big's your team?
Right now, we're a company of 4 people.
Sweet. Okay.
And with the ability to grow.
Lean and mean.
Well, it's kind of interesting you say that, because these buildings are really heavy in the front end, right?
Right.
So, and that's just me and my team in the front end until we get into construction. Then obviously we grow with our professionals then. But up front, that's the hard part in these jobs, because as you know, the petrochemicals feed process, they call their front end engineering and design process. Boy, it takes a bit to get through that. And the big challenges there are, I'm kind of getting on to one of the things we do, but one of the big challenges there is cost certainty for those guys, because they go get these budget numbers on buildings from commercial contractors, and then they get through with feed and they price a real blast building, and these guys have not included all of the costs that they need in a blast building.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Our blast doors, they're 600 pounds, probably 500-600 pounds. We mount them different, we maintain them different. A blast window's got a seal if it's a shelter in place.
Yeah.
Things like that, you have to account for all of those costs up front, so these guys get to the end of their feed process and they have some cost certainty going into it.
Oh, that's huge.
Right. So what happens a lot of times is their cost is all wrong. They go to their management, now the project's canceled or kicked down the road to the next budget year because they didn't get their cost right.
Gotcha.
And, so really think we can provide some value up front.
That's huge.
Right.
And then the rest of that is what subbed out to
That's
your
right.
partner
So
group.
I have my team, my safety professionals, my superintendents, and then we're going to bring in the right subs that the plants like, that know how to work there.
Nice. Great. Yeah, fantastic. So sounds, again, we always get excited. Sounds like jobs, sounds like opportunities for the region. So we can't be more excited than.
Man, we hope so. It's a great niche, and it's a great need in our industry. We're very passionate about keeping our friends and family safe in these refineries.
So you guys are also involved in, you're kicking things off. You're a local guy, right?
Yep.
So I would imagine you have a heart for not only the region, but for things that are taking place in the region. Are there any organizations or anything that you're a fan of or you're a part of that you guys support?
Thank you for asking that. Yeah. So the Periwinkle Foundation, if you're not familiar with it, is it's a foundation. They solely support the oncology wing at Texas Children's.
Okay.
And they have several events to help improve the lives of all these kids and their families. They send the kids to camps. They have programs in the hospital, and it's just a fabulous organization. So I think the next event is September 4th, I think, which is their
That's the third annual. Sorry,
third annual. Yeah.
September 27th.
September 27th. Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's all good.
September 27th.
You wrote it down for us for a reason.
I know. That's right. Is their golf tournament. One of the big events they do every year is called the Iron Sommelier, where they get the top sommeliers from all the finest restaurants in Houston, and they put together a wine tasting event.
Oh, wow.
And,
That'd be cool.
and have a little contest, and it raises a lot of money and to support these kids and get them to camp. So
Sounds awesome.
yeah, we're really proud to be associated with the organization.
Awesome, man. And then we always like to kind of like highlight our guests. I mean, you kind of went back from a timeline perspective, but you know, for someone to step out and have the courage to start a company in this marketplace, they have to have done some things right. You know, you don't just wake up one day and then when you were sharing some of your experience, you've been in a very solid spot as a leader and contributor in the past. Would you mind sharing a little bit about some of the things that you would attribute to your success and to the things that have led to you to get this far?
Yeah, sure. The number one is really
Besides being an Aggie.
The biggest thing really it's a thirst for knowledge. I can tell you from the day I got out of school, every job I've learned, and I tried to learn from the guys that knew what they were doing around me. Right, and I've had the privilege of working with some really great professionals, some of the smartest guys I've ever met in this industry. And I tried to be a sponge, and I've tried to absorb what they had, because what our whole business is about is solving problems and trying to solve problems in a cost-effective manner for our clients. And you don't learn that overnight, and it took a whole career. I'm 58 years old, so it took a whole career of being around all those people and seeing how they manage people, how they manage teams, and how they solve problems cost effectively.
Right.
And those are the biggest things I think that have led to my career.
Fantastic, awesome. As we kind of get ready to wrap up the show, I know I told you I was going to give you a minute just to kind of give us a brief synopsis of, because you mentioned a few of the things that you did up front. You just answered one of those questions around, I forgot what you called it, cost certainty. Yeah, great point. And that answered, that was actually a cool concept, because I don't think a lot of people realize how much work is going on behind the scenes with these refineries, and from a safety perspective, it's not. I mean, it's a big process from start to finish when they make these decisions. They're years in advance planning for turnarounds, all these things.
That's right.
It's not like they wake up tomorrow and go, okay, we got to turn this stuff around. What are we going to do? This is
the budget cycle is years in the making.
Years in the making for trying to figure out these capital plans, and so and you're a big part of that now. So you slide in and you help answer these questions and try to solve these problems. Tell us a little bit about some other for anybody that's listening that it's relevant to where their industry, and they're going to call you guys. Give us a list of some of the things that you guys do.
Sure. So one of the first things I always like to say, and it's a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but it's really serious. So we're a safety company that knows how to build, right? And that's the first thing. If you're working inside the plants, it begins and ends with safety. From the moment we start working with a client, from design through construction, we're thinking about how are we safely going to get this done and bring everybody home from the day we start putting pencils to paper, right? So it begins then, right? So there's really a safety analysis, a safety plan is where we start. That's number one on how to execute this project, right? And after that, what we do is we work with the greatest professionals in the business to get the design done, and that's really the hard part of our job. Honestly, is not building it; it's getting it through design, because these are specialized buildings, and they're specialized engineers and specialized subs that do this.
Right.
So pulling an owner along through that, helping them make the right decisions, that's where the hard work is, and accounting for all of those costs, right? So that's the pre-construction consulting piece that we do.
Right.
And then from there, we'll take it all the way through design. We'll hire, I don't have an in-house design team, but I work with the best professionals in the business, and I'll either hire them or we'll work with the owner's design team to accomplish the design. We like to be up in the middle of it, from concept to finish, because we think we can help the owner make the right decisions at the right time.
Yeah,
right?
collaboration's key.
It is.
You got to collaborate.
It's everything.
Yeah.
You heard me talk about communication. It's one of the best things that, if we're not communicating up front on what's going to be in that building, how they're connected. I'll give you an instance, or for instance, excuse me. everybody kind of gets the structure right? Because there's structural engineers that specialize in this.
We've got years and years of
But
data to make
but
sure
everybody,
it gets done
everything
right,
else
yeah.
that goes in that building also has to be accounted for. These buildings have to work as a system, right? That's why you need the builder up front, because the MEP systems, the mechanical electrical systems, typically we're using seismic 4 connections so it doesn't fall down on people. We're not putting monitors on exterior walls so they become projectiles, right? So we provide the expertise to really guide the owner through the design of the whole facility to make sure it's protecting the people.
Yeah, you wouldn't
inside.
think about that. I mean, if you know,
Yeah.
I mean, you wouldn't think that in a explosion where, like, when I walk into a normal building and they've got TVs and stuff, and for
That's right.
presentations and stuff, you're like that. Well, in a blast, that's a missile.
That's right, it becomes
Right.
a projectile. You make
Yeah.
that building doing this, so anything on those exterior walls is going to be a projectile.
Wow.
So we don't do that. We actually don't connect interior walls to the exterior walls because they would crumble. So there's things we do specifically
cool.
in a blast building.
Just stuff you wouldn't think
Right,
about.
so you really need the builder up front.
Yeah.
So those are our services up
I've been in the
front.
construction space for a while too, and so
Yep.
designing them to withstand a Cat 5 hurricane, right, versus a blast, they're still totally different.
Totally different, yeah.
And it's amazing the difference between the two. Because I know around here we're more worried about hurricanes more often than we're worried about blasts. But yeah, it's significantly important to look at those blasts. So
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, though, knowing that we are in a region like this, because that's a great point. You build these buildings to do this, but we are in the hurricane, one of the hurricane capitals of the U.S. Right?
Yes, we
right,
are,
right here.
unfortunately.
We just everything kind of runs up through here in poor Louisiana, because they get hit. They
get
those
hit hard,
poor
yeah.
guys. But how does that work in that space, right? Because you want them to do this when an explosion
That's right.
happens, but is that
But we also
necessarily a
wanted
great
to-
thing?
We also
when-
wanted to withstand the hurricane.
Yeah,
Yeah.
same concept.
Yeah, so it's interesting you say that. So these buildings are not built to a building code,
Okay.
right? Because it's a specialized design. It's built to the owner's requirements, right?
Okay.
So the owner's requirements is, yes, that it withstands the hurricane zone as well as the blast.
Wow, okay.
So they build them to withstand both, yeah. But you can't find these designs in your steel manual and in the local building codes.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I'll just
That's
go,
why,
I'll just go to
again,
the catalog and order it.
Right, it's such a
that way.
specialized field is why we think there's a great niche.
Yeah, it's perfect. Yeah, it's crazy because I'm like envisioning, because you're talking about buildings that would do this or whatever.
That's
so I'm
right,
just
dynamic
picturing,
buildings,
when the winds are coming, you're sitting at your desk, you're like
Swaying.
oh,
Swaying.
probably
For those that are listening,
yeah.
he's talking about swaying.
sway. Yeah. So, oh yeah, you forgot. I'm doing the movement.
Yeah, you're making the movement, but we're just
Clint's here to help me out. Yeah, so he's painting the picture of what it would look like for those that don't get to have the video.
Think
So
of Axl Rose and Guns N' Roses.
yeah,
swaying.
think that's where I'm at.
Hey,
So.
let's hope you never feel that.
Yeah, that'd be a bad feeling. Well, is there anything else as we get ready to wrap up that you want to share with our audience?
No, I really want to thank Chad and the whole alliance for having me on. I am very passionate about safety, and my friends and family have grown up in this industry, and all the industries around here working inside the fence, and we all owe it to them to protect the lives and get them home safe every
Absolutely.
day.
Yeah.
And this is how I do that, right, with buildings. So
That's awesome.
I know the alliance is passionate about safety, and they champion it every chance they get. So I really appreciate
Awesome.
everybody letting us have a chance to talk about it.
Well, we're glad to have you today, and that's a great thing to wrap up on, because again, if you want to know the purpose or the mission behind our show, it's to shed the appropriate light on the great work that's happened in the petrochem space. And so a lot of times people don't get to both sides of the story, but we're committed to safety. We're committed to getting our people in and out of those plants every day. We're committed to getting products out to the world and globally. And we can see today the significant and critical nature of that, along with oil and gas, and how important it is to our economy and the things that we need. So all of this is designed to help tell a great story. And Chris, you did a great job of telling a great story today.
Thank you.
And we appreciate that. So many leaders in our area are committed, it's not to a job, but it's to a mission, and it's to a mission. It's a passion, right?
They have a
They're
passion,
guys
yeah.
that grew up or came up in this field. They've got family in the plants, family in the community, and they get out there and serve. And so it's not just showing up and doing a job, but it's showing up and creating really a mission to serve and take care of these folks. So we're thankful for that. and thankful for our audience. So if you want to continue to stay tuned in, you can always go to the Economic Alliance portregion.com, or it's actually allianceportregion.com, and then you can always go to our subscription channel. There's a media tab there, and you can subscribe to any of our shows, anything that you haven't followed. If I would recommend being a subscriber because you get notified when we do this. And if somebody needs to hear this, make sure that you pass this message along to them and let them hear the true story. And
comment, share,
please, yeah. And then Chris, I know you got a good little advertisement. I don't know if they told you in the little questionnaire thing. There's a piece at the bottom that says we charge $1,000 per view. So in 30 days we'll check it, and the invoice.
My membership dues
invoice in the mail.
Right.
So let's hit Chris's pocketbook and pass this out to 1,000 people.
If you have questions for us too, LinkedIn is the best way to get a hold of us.
Yeah,
so
LinkedIn, just reach out to Clint Aiken or Jason Lee, and we're glad to have you guys. So we'll see you guys next week, and thanks for tuning in.